In this video, we'll learn about the basics of DNS, how DNS works, and DNS records. Before starting with DNS, let's understand what domain name is. All Internet-connected device has a machine address, also referred to as an IP address. You must be aware of the machine address of every resource you wish to access on the Internet. Online materials can be accessed directly through the IP address if you know it. However, it's preferable to have a sensible name. Thus, domain name comes into picture. It is similar to how names are used to identify people in society. Translating domain name into the appropriate IP address is handled by DNS. Domain name system manages and maps the name of the website and the specific IP address it refers to, much like a phone book. Every URL on the Internet has a distinct IP address, which is that of the machine hosting the server of the website being accessed. Any registrar, such as GoDaddy and Bluehost, which are recognized by the nonprofit ICANN, will let you register a domain name. The information for the DNS records is stored and propagated to other DNS servers throughout the world by the registry operator, such as Verisign. Now that we understood what domain name is, let's take a look at how DNS works. When you enter any domain name into your browser, such as facebook.com, the computer attempts to find its matching IP address in its OS cache. If the IP address is not found, it sends the query to your Internet Service Provider, DNS Resolver server. If the DNS Resolver cannot find the answer in its cache, the query is forwarded to the root server, which is at the top of the DNS hierarchy. The root server can assist the DNS Resolver in locating the IP address by directing it to the top-level domain server for the .com domain. The DNS Resolver will then query the TLD server for the IP address. The TLD server has the IP address information for top-level domains such as .com, .org, .net and so on. Since the .com TLD server received the query for the IP address of facebook.com, it sends the IP address of the authoritative name server as the final step. The DNS Resolver will now query the authoritative name server for facebook.com's IP address. All domain information, including the IP address, will be known to the authoritative name server. As a result, it sends the IP address to the DNS Resolver, which returns the result to the computer, which stores the IP in its local cache and loads facebook.com. Now that we have seen how DNS works, let's understand what DNS records are. When you own a domain, you must periodically modify your DNS settings in order to set up various tools and services. This is accomplished by altering various DNS records. An IP address is assigned to a domain or subdomain using a record. You can use CNAME to forward a domain to another domain rather than an IP address. The NS record is used on the Internet to determine the IP address for a specific domain. We have two records for NS to improve reliability. MX records are used to point to the domain's mail server. That is all about DNS records. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more tutorials.